Hey everyone, this is Charlie the Plug, your host of the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, powered by Empower You Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe so you too can be a part of the biggest empowerment network on YouTube and Facebook. We bring you weekly interviews of Detroit difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship, community involvement, also reaction to business news and community news. This does not happen without your support. Thank you. Hey, we are live with the Detroit Metro Plug podcast. Welcome. I am Charles McKaye, aka Charlie the Plug, and welcome to episode 121 of the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, powered by Empower You Ventures. Every week, we bring you interviews of Detroit difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. So thank you for those who are watching us live on our YouTube channel, on our LinkedIn page, and on Facebook. So we have a great topic tonight that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Dads Matter Too. I have a special guest attorney, Jermaine Wyrick, and he's going to talk about his work in fighting for fathers in relation to custody and equitable treatment, parenting time, and we're going to talk about all those things. And so I'm excited about that. So if you're joining us live and you have a comment or question, please put it in the chat, and I'll recognize your comment or your question. So happy Monday to everyone. We're here live in the Metro Detroit area, and it's quite not fall yet, but it's definitely getting there in this area. I'm starting to see some of the trees changing colors, leaves falling. We got some nice weather. I like this is my favorite time of the year. I like it. It starts off cool in the morning and gets a little warm, and then back cool again. So comfortable sleeping weather. So definitely, I love that. So welcome again to this episode. Now, before we go into our topic, I want to highlight our partner sponsor for this episode. Let me pull up this slide. So you can probably see on the ticker. So I want to recognize our platinum sponsor for this episode 121 is none other than Silas Williams. He is a local realtor of Community Choice Realty. Now, if you are in the market for a new home and you are a first-time buyer, especially if you live in Detroit, there's some new first-time buyer programs that you may qualify for. Also, there's also first-time buyer programs with different banks. So our realtor, our platinum sponsor, can help you research that and connect you with the right resources. Maybe you're running out of space in your current home and you're looking to upgrade. Well, I would encourage you to connect with Brother Silas Williams. He'll help you meet your home expansion and get to your second home or third home to meet your dream, your home dream. Maybe you're an investor. I don't know. You're looking to invest. You need a connection with the realtor. I encourage you to connect with Silas Williams. His direct phone number is 586-251-7252. That's 586-251-7252. You can email him directly at Silas, that's SILAS, period, last name Williams, WILLIAMS, at Gmail. His website is there as well. That's www.homesforsaleandmish.com. So I want you to reach out to this guy. He's a great guy. I know him personally, and he's a platinum sponsor for this episode. All right, so, and his information is there on the ticker at the bottom. If you're looking for an agent, looking to unlock the door to your new home, he'll make home ownership easy, especially for first-time buyers. All right, so now let's go into, I'm going to introduce our guests. I'm going to add them to the stage here. All right, so I'm going to give a formal introduction, and we're going to get right into it. So our next guest uh, is a native Detroiter. Has practiced law since 1997. Was born in Detroit. He graduated from Detroit Urban Lutheran School, Cass Tech. Shout out to Cass Tech High School. Uh, he's a University of Michigan. So I guess we can say go blue. Go blue.
Leaders in the best.
All right, so he graduated U of M, bachelor's in political science, and also Wayne State University Law School. Shout out to the Wayne State Warriors. I'm an alumni of Wayne State. And so our next has extensive experience in practicing family law, and also also has experience as a trial criminal lawyer as well. So I'm delighted to have him on the show. So just to get things started, if I was to ask you, Jermaine, who is Jermaine Wyrick? What would you tell people?
I would say social justice advocate, very specifically, Charles. I went into law because I believe in fairness. I believe in equality. One of the phrases that stands out most to me, if you go to the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., which is our nation's highest court, you see the phrase embedded there, equal justice under the law. And it's a principle, quite frankly, I believed in my entire 27-year legal career. And even preceding that, when I was cultivated to become an attorney as a small child growing up here in the city of Detroit.
Awesome. Wow, so that's a great introduction. We read a little bit about your bio. You kind of talked about what you're doing. I want to get into this topic, and I want to start with reading some statistics that I pulled up in preparation for this podcast. And I'm not sure if people know the impact of fatherlessness in the homes. A lot of studies have come out, and I'm just reading some things that I researched just by Googling some different things. And they say that children with fatherless homes can experience a number of negative consequences, including mental health challenges. Children who don't grow up with a father are more likely to have emotional problems like anxiety, depression, social withdrawal, and may also be more likely to have suicidal thoughts, self-injuring behaviors. There's also research that talks about those that are likely to get involved in the criminal justice system and all kinds of things. And I'm sure our guests are going to talk about that. And so that is a great impact just on not having fathers involved in children's lives. Now, we're going to go more in depth into your topic. I want to share a clip from TV judge, Judge Judy, as she talks about fathers and just her perspective of why fathers need to be involved in children's lives. I want to show this quick clip, and I want to have your reaction.
We're supposed to, in this country, treat mothers and fathers the same with regard to custody. No one has a less equal position. However, when I practiced in the family court and then was later a judge in the family court, I found that that law was honored in the breach. Most judges and most psychologists that served the court always thought that the mother was better. And I didn't always find that that was true.
You have a child with him?
Yes.
That's not your child. That's both of your child. No, just a second. That child is both of yours. So either you take the child or he takes the child. He's the father no less than you're the mother.
But I'm going to suggest this to the two of you. You've wisely or unwisely made a child together. You don't have the right to take the child away from the other parent. He would not have that right to take the child away from you. That's what the court said.
And whether you like him or not, whether you like her or not, whether he's a nice guy or not, whether he's a bum or not, he's a bum that you picked to make two children with. Mm-hmm. And if he shows up to see the children on a Wednesday and he's given you some indication that he wasn't going to be there on Wednesday, and for no other reason than he said he wasn't going to come, you don't let your children see him, that's wrong.
All right, so we saw that clip. And from Judge Judy, the TV judge, where she handles these cases with family court, with custody. And you highlighted the importance of fathers being involved in the children's lives. And she shared how sometimes the court seems to side with the mother as being kind of more suitable for being involved in the children. I'd like to have your reaction to that clip, and then you can kind of get into what you do in your practice with father's law justice.
Judge Judy is absolutely right. In fact, the statistics suggest that when there is a custody dispute involving children, well over 80% of the time, when the two litigants are not getting along, the mother is awarded what you call primary custody, which means the vast majority of the time, versus equal custody, which would be like a 50-50 arrangement. And that's in large part what Judge Judy was talking about, specifically in terms of an implicit bias or even a gender bias against man in family court. And it's really based upon, in large part, more or less outdated, antiquated, traditional roles. I mean, when our current state, the state of Michigan's child custody law was passed, it was in 1970. That was 54 years ago now. And it's important to point that out because there's been a significant change in gender roles. It would have been unprecedented in 1970 for a woman to be vice president, let alone possibly president now. So I say all of that to say, because the roles of men and women have changed, the law needs to more or less catch up with that. But a lot of people, male and female, irrespective of socioeconomic backgrounds, as Judge Judy said, when decisions are made in this regard, in this arena, oftentimes the dad, Judge Judy said this very specifically, is treated like a second-class citizen, as opposed to him and his children being entitled to what you call equal justice under the law, meaning a balanced approach where a dad isn't discriminated against based upon his gender.
Wow, man, you brought up some interesting points. And so you're saying that what Judge Judy is saying, there's a bias through the courts when it comes to who's suitable.
Yeah, and the statistics, not to interrupt you, Charles, actually suggest that because 50% of the men who currently pay child support have no parenting time whatsoever with their children, which essentially means they're not only not a parent, they're not even a visitor, which is an antiquated term. Unfortunately, family courts are caught up with and no longer used. They're not a visitor, they're a stranger to their kid. And parental alienation is a major problem when you relate to fatherlessness as well. You referenced a few minutes ago some of the societal mental health issues that can arise at any age, from a small child well into adulthood, in terms of the impact of fatherlessness. And one of the statistics suggests that 63% of suicides, you're 5 times more likely to have a kid, a teenager, whatever you name it, in this suicide because they're in a fatherless situation than a person that has a father that has a major impact in their child's life. So it's very significant, even in terms of the tragedies of people engaging in the drastic measure of taking their own life. In fact, I read a book also that you should be aware of by a gentleman by the name of Greg Ellis, who's an actor who actually wrote a book called The Respondent. And he more or less detailed in an autobiographical manner the horrors that he went through when he got divorced and being alienated from his children and divorce and things of that nature. And one of the things that he pointed out, in addition to the statistic that I just referenced, as it relates to teenagers, that men who are alienated from their children become so despondent, they become so depressed that they have a 1,500% greater chance of committing suicide themselves than the average person who commits suicide.
Wow.
And that's because, as I stated a few minutes ago, you have statistics such as 37.9% of dads in that situation, even some who are not deadbeats, even some who are not abusive, 37.9% of dads are denied any parenting time whatsoever.
Wow.
So that's problematic.
So in your experience, I know people talk about, well, we're not talking about so-called deadbeat dads. We're talking about fathers who intentionally want to be involved in their children's life. And we definitely, of course, divorce is not something we wish on anyone, but it does happen. It's a reality. Things happen. In your experience, for those fathers who are trying to have joint custody, joint legal, joint physical custody. What have you seen happen in the courts with regard to that?
Well, there's a mindset that actually comes oftentimes, unfortunately, from the moms, unless the mom is a very kind-hearted, compassionate, fair-minded person, there really is no value whatsoever in continuing to have contact, almost as though, you might have heard this phrase, mama's baby, daddy's maybe.
Right.
So maybe we'll let the dad see, but the mom has to continue to be an integral part of the child's life. And what's problematic about that, just because people divorce or separate doesn't mean that you divorce or separate from your child. And most importantly, your child doesn't need you to separate from them. So because there's the mindset of 50% of cases in which the mom does not see value in the dad's continuing to be involved, oftentimes that mindset is rubber stamped. In many instances, even by male judges or male referees, especially if they consider a situation to be high conflict, or if you can more or less cast aspersion upon a fit, loving, and bonded dad and kind of cast him into that negative stereotype of being a deadbeat or in some way unfit or in some way inferior to the mom, then unfortunately you have a situation in which children are not as integrated in dad's lives or allowed to be around the dad as they are mom.
Wow, man. This is kind of a side note, but where did that term "mama's baby"? No, yeah, mama's. What was it?
Mama's baby.
Mama's baby.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, mama's
I think
baby.
that actually comes from a
Daddy's
song. Yeah, I think I've heard
Yeah.
that from or at least like
Okay.
a lyric to a song or something like that. Yeah, but unfortunately, I mean, we could joke about it, but it's serious in that oftentimes that's the mindset, and where men are made into what I call human ATM machines, or children that use their palms. It's like, maybe we'll let you see the child if you pay child support. And there's so much more to raising a child than child support, not to in any way minimize the extreme financial costs on both sides in terms of raising a child. But there are so many other things. You can replace any amount of money that you make. You can never replace the time that you have. Your child at any age or at any particular age, whether they're 3, 5, 7, 15, or 17, will never be that age again. They're making experiences. They're encountering memories every day of their lives, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. And if it's negative, if they have a good, fit, loving parent, irrespective of gender, mom or dad, that dad or that mom should be an integral part of that child's life. That dad or mom shouldn't have been pushed away or pushed aside from being involved in that child's life just because the parents are no longer romantically together.
Now, what do you think is the pushback? Why the mom may not be open to a joint 50-50 custody, or the courts not awarding that? What has been your experience?
I think oftentimes if you have, unfortunately, a mom who is vindictive, who's bitter, who just can't stand the sight of the dad or whatever the case may be, they feel as though that sentiment has to pass on through the court or through the child. But where that can be very toxic and very dangerous is that if you can't forgive and move forward as the mature, emotionally stable adult should move forward, then really you're almost encouraging that child to hate that other half of that child, because it took two people to conceive that child, and that child biologically, it's each side's individual. It's not just the mom's baby, it's not just the dad's baby, it's really straight down the middle. So having said that, it's incumbent upon courts, it's incumbent upon others involved, and even the moms themselves to understand the importance of raising a child that will be healthy, that won't have anxiety or the depression or the behavioral issues, or even there's statistics that show that they have delays in their ability to learn at different ages and things of that nature. So it's important for the mom to more or less kind of perhaps sacrifice their hurt feelings, their broken heart, whatever you may name it, and really put the love of the child in the forefront and realize that other parent may love the child as well.
Wow, man. So you think that some of the pushback is just the emotional feelings of the breakup, the bitterness, wow. How can people who are dealing with this? How can they overcome that to provide a healthy environment for the children?
That's an excellent question. I think absolutely. And one of the things I was going to add to that too is that part of the discussion, I think, has to be more or less the incentives that, quite frankly, the government has even instituted even preceding the 70s and when child support was enacted based upon those traditional roles of the mom being the nurturer and the provider. I mean, not the provider, excuse me, the nurturer and the caretaker, whereas the dad is supposed to be the person that out here is kind of doing a hunt and providing financially and not necessarily worried about day-to-day care. So I think because there's not really the notion that dads are nurturers or care providers, there's the notion that the man just has to go out and I think the old phrase used to be make the bacon and bring it home so the woman can cook it.
Right.
And so I'm saying that to say I don't think a lot of people, as far as we come from 1970 when our Child Custody Act was enacted, even when we look at the social, political changes that we've seen in our society and just the overall changes we've seen in society, really still embrace the notion that dads can be very nurturing and very caring as well.
Okay. Wow. Have you seen any trends in terms of fathers having equal or equitable treatment in the courts?
Well, it's certainly something I advocate for in my firm.
Okay.
And one of the things that I try to even in terms of a mindset shift is like, say, for instance, if a gentleman calls me today and he said, I want to get visitation with my children, I cringe at that. And I tell him, don't say visitation because that's something you do with people that are sick in hospitals,
Right.
or prisoners. You don't want to be a visitor. You don't want to be a stranger. You want to be a parent. So it starts with more or less the mindset that you embrace going into a situation that is a crisis in many instances or a problem, and really shifting from that crisis or problem to how do you start to advocate for solutions. So I'm saying that to say where even those semantics are so important is if you go into the equation acting like a visitor, you're going to be treated like a visitor. But if you go into the equation acting like a parent, then you should be treated like a parent, irrespective of whatever your gender is.
Wow, and man, that is deep. That terminology. Somebody saying, reaching out to you, talking about I want visitation of children, and just that mindset. Visitation is like visit prison or a hospital, but just getting the mindset. Hey, I want this parenting or being a parent. That's deep, and not to assert myself in this topic, but I experienced personally. I don't wish divorce on anyone, and I went through a divorce and custody situation in my first marriage, and I definitely, don't wish divorce on anyone. Things happen, and I definitely would say that, on the record, that that probably 95% of the marriage not working out was definitely on my action, not being the best version of myself. And so we had 3 kids out of that union, and just not knowing my rights or anything, I accepted some things that was, a challenge. And then later on, tried to change it by filing petitions and trying to have joint custody. And my friend here was my attorney, so we lived through that together. But just really, I just didn't have an understanding of what, my rights were, what I should be doing, and didn't have the right mindset. But I began over time to really understand the impact of a father. And I tried my best to be involved in my children's lives in spite of the divorce. Of course, I could have done more, but I did the best I could with the resources I had. But man, that mindset of visitation and parenting time versus parenting time or having that perspective, I think that's really deep. So I want to kind of go into your journey of why is this such a passionate issue for you, and what specifically do you do at Father's Justice Law?
Well, it's a long story, really, Charles. And one of the things that I talk about, even in terms of my life story, is that quite frankly, I grew up in a single parent household where I was raised by my mom. And I don't want to really, cast any aspersion toward my dad in that regard, but that's who I was raised by. And so I say that to say, even on this journey of father's justice, it's not in any way to cast aspersion or to be macho or to be chauvinistic or anything of that nature. It's to be fair, and it's really to look at focusing on children. One of the I'll lay out, what father justice encompasses. We change Saturdays of separation into parenting, into happy parenting memories. And our mission in doing that is so that dads would have a major impact on their children's lives, culturally, educationally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I deliberately leave financially out of it. Like I said, not that finances aren't important, but oftentimes the focus towards moms and things of that nature are only in finances, are only on making the children pawns, which is the wrong focus because, as I stated, time is the commodity, is our most precious resource. They can't be replaced once it's over, especially when you start talking about child rearing. So it's very important for both parents, if they're fit, if they're able, if they're not in any way dangerous or scary to or a child, to have a major cultural, educational, emotional impact. I am, not romantically having been for several years since my child was an infant, involved romantically with my child's mom, but I make sure that whatever I do with the quality parenting time that I have, just like, for instance, the other day I took my daughter to her first University of Michigan football game. That in and of itself is cultural, education, and emotional spirituality, depending upon how you look at it. And so I'm saying that to say, it's very important for children, if they want to be raised, and this goes to our vision, to becoming happy, healthy, law-abiding, productive adults, to have good memories as children, and not to have to recover from the trauma of being an alienated child or being a child that felt as though they were abandoned by their dad. And in many instances, it wasn't that they were abandoned by their dad, but in some instances, they were alienated from their dad, as is the case with 50% of the men that pay child support, or as is the case of 37.9% of men that are completely denied parenting time based upon that. It's 50% of women not seeing any value, and then oftentimes that mindset unfortunately being embraced. So part of even my journey is, my mom worked at juvenile court. She started working there when I was 2 years old in various roles. And at some point, as a small child, I decided that in some way or another, I wanted to make a difference as it relates to justice versus injustice. And so, quite frankly, when I went through my own custody battle, I was very surprised on many different levels in terms of how that was handled. I think one of the war stories that I kind of tell, even coming from the criminal context, is that I recall during the trial of my own custody situation, neither my attorney nor the opposing attorney gave an opening statement. And I'm sitting there befuddled, like, I don't think my baby's worth an opening statement. And where I come from, trials and jury trials, and that's even one of the things that, quite frankly, I think if I'm ever allowed to weigh in terms of how policies should be changed in family court, should be changed in terms of perhaps having jury trials. But I say all of that to say it's malpractice to not give an opening statement. But unfortunately, that's all part of the kind of just running through the mills and we'll just do what we normally do over here versus really having advocacy, most importantly, for the children that are involved, more so than the Eagles or the parents, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Okay, so your journey was dealt with just your home life, being raised by a single parent, and then also you experiencing that personally with your daughter, and it led you to father's justice. So I want to get into some specific work you do, how people can connect with you, if they are those who are watching us live, those who are watching the replay, who are going through custody issues with their current situation or possibly facing a divorce and want to make sure they're involved in the truth live. We're going to talk more into that. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to go more in depth with how you can connect with our guest and some more work that he's doing in the area of father's justice. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Detroit. Are you a Detroit area small business owner, entrepreneur, leader of a nonprofit organization, or a business service provider? And are you looking for ways to share your product, service, or your programs with a local Detroit audience? Let us help you increase your reach by becoming an ad sponsor with the Detroit Metro Plug podcast powered by Empower You Ventures. Our weekly video podcast is a growing local feature on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn that focuses on local business and community news. This gives you a chance to connect with local Detroit customers or clients. We offer cost-effective ads to fit your needs. Click the link to learn more about our current ad specials. And remember, connections matter. This is Charlie the Plug with the Detroit Metro Plug podcast.
Black Leaders Detroit, they knew that during the pandemic, that Black businesses were going to be left out of any type of funding that the government gave, and they wanted to make sure that they were able to figure out how they could step up and help, because again, this is their community, and they want to make sure that their community is still here when this pandemic is over with, and the only way you can do that is by offering support to your community, and so they stepped up and they did that.
I've been telling everyone I know about Black Leaders Detroit. The things that they're doing is simply amazing. And they're taking care of business for the Black business owners.
It's $1 a week donation to keep this great thing moving. $1 a week keeps it popping. Black Leaders Detroit.
All right, so we're back live with episode 122 with our special topic, Dads Matter Too. And we've been here with our very special guest, attorney Jermaine A. Wyrick, founder of Fathers Justice Law, a very experienced attorney, trial lawyer too. His specialties in family law, as does trial cases, criminal trial cases. I'll let him share more about that. So if you're joining us, we talked about just the issues with custody issues that sometimes fathers get left out. We talked about the impact of homes when fathers not involved in their children's lives. And we talked about definitely, we don't wish divorce on anyone. These things occur. But despite all that, the importance of men being involved in children's lives. So before we go into talking more specifically about what Jermaine does and also how he can help those who are out there, I just want to highlight the platinum sponsor. Pull the slide up. So we want to recognize our platinum sponsor for this podcast, Mr. Silas Williams, realtor of Community Choice Realty. So if you're in the market to buy a first home, or maybe you need more space, or you're looking for your dream home, you're in a current home, but you're looking for a dream home, I want you to consider reaching out to Brother Silas Williams. He will help to unlock the door of your new dream home. He also will help make your home ownership easy for first-time buyers. There's different first-time buyer programs. There's his number, 586-251-7252, 586-251-7252. Silas Williams, you can reach him by email. It's right there on the screen. It's silas.williams@gmail.com. So shout out to our platinum sponsor. So for those who are looking for a new home, taking advantage of the first-time buyer programs, reach out to Brother Silas Williams. He'll be able to help you unlock the door to your new dream home. All right, so we talked a bit about what you do, and let's say if somebody's watching and they need an attorney, who's the ideal client for Fathers Justice, and who do you specifically work with?
That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. The ideal client for Fathers Justice is emotionally mature, stable gentleman that has a good bonding, loving relationship with their child. If they don't have that, if they're ill and they get a lot of those calls, someone who is willing and able to expend whatever resources of energy, time, and even finances to more or less have it for us to go into court, to be a team player, and to be amenable to taking my advice so we could go forward and advocate for justice, most importantly for your children. To me, that's always the preeminent focus. And sometimes we even have to kind of step back as parents on both sides as it relates to what's in our quote unquote best interest of our children. But it's certainly a one that is capable, willing, and able to have a short-term and long-term impact on the child. It falls right in line with my mission statement, one who wants to not only financially impact their child's life, but also impact their child's life educationally, culturally, emotionally, and spiritually, and however that is defined to that individual or that family.
Now that's interesting, and I'm not trying to point out the difference just there with men and their children. You indicated that it's important for them to have established a healthy bond with their child, the clients that you are focused on working with. Is that fair to say?
Well, not in every instance. In an ideal situation, yes. But unfortunately, what I would even call some of the misfortunate situations or tragic situations, I get calls from guys, even good guys, that have not seen their children in years. And I'm more than happy to work with those guys, because oftentimes it's not because they've been in prison for an extended period of time, although I get a few of those, but it's not because of circumstances that even has necessitated that length of time. Often it's because they were either court ordered to not be around their children for whatever reason, some even military or turn around. I see types of girls, but sometimes the alienation oftentimes is because the mom moved and I don't know where she moved to, and she want me to know where she moved to, and I don't know the phone number, I don't know the address, I don't know any other relative to reach out to. So I'm saying that to say, ideally it would be somebody that hasn't lost contact with their children, but I'm more than happy to deal with alienation because that can be one of the most serious and severe issues, not only as it relates to that dad, as we related that 1,500% higher suicide rate that Greg Ellis referenced in his book, but also 6-time higher, 63% higher suicide rate for children, or the 71% more likely that child is alienated, that's a stranger to their dad, is more likely to engage in drug abuse, more likely to engage in criminal activity, is more likely to drop out of high school, is more likely to be a teenage or have a teenage pregnancy that they're not prepared for in any aspect of the world, financially, educationally, spiritually, emotionally, to raise another child. And that impact, those negative social impacts, fall upon society, not just the immediate family that's impacted. And by that I mean the mom, the grandma, whoever has to step in and bail the kid out if they go to juvenile court or worse yet, adult court, because even 71% of child murderers come from fatherless homes. But when you look at a positive dad being in the lives of children, then those statistics are the exact opposite. Children are 39% more likely to graduate from high school, 2 times more likely to go to college or some type of trade school, 80% less likely to go to jail or anything of that nature. So I'm saying that to say it's like night and day, it's like heaven and hell when you look at the difference between fathers versus fathers having a major impact in the children's lives.
Wow, you said something interesting. I'd like to explore the term fathers who alienated themselves. And your experience with the fathers who contact you and say that, hey, I haven't seen my children in 10, maybe 15 years, maybe not due to being incarcerated. In your findings, is this voluntary that they were alienated, that they did, and then all of a sudden they wanted to get more involved? what has been the case when they had that big gap?
In most instances, no, but understand that father's justice, although it's a law office, we're in a non-justice zone. So I get a lot of calls from guys who have been in prison, who might have gone to prison for 5 years, 10 years, or something of that nature. But even in those instances, if they don't go to prison in a way that they did something dangerous to their kids, or they have shown that they're ready to be a productive member of society, they have paid their debts to society, there's no way in the world that they shouldn't be allowed to reunify with their children as well, provided they get in contact with them, provided that they're going to engage in healthy, productive, meaningful behavior. So I don't want to cast aspersion to any dad, but certainly I come across dads that never, probably jaywalked, I had to really put it literally, that they alienated from their children because the mom doesn't come around, and in some instances, support feed into the narrative. Unfortunately, they get painted with that broad, deadbeat brush that, quite frankly, may not even be the truth. Right. And one of the things that we take great pride in at Father's Justice is being truth seekers and making sure that the story is accurately told in terms of how dads should be involved in their children's lives, irrespective. No parent is, so, do I get good dads that have never done anything wrong, alienated? Yes, but I get bad dads. I mean, bad, I don't want to say bad dads, but by that I mean imperfect people that have flaws or brushes with the law themselves.
For those fathers who maybe had a period where they wasn't involved in their children's lives, and maybe there was a period of alienation, alienated from their children, what have you seen in the courts? How, when you tried to advocate for them to get back involved, to have parenting time, and spend that time to bond with the kids, has it been an uphill battle when they try to get back into the children's lives?
Oftentimes it is an uphill battle because they're kind of looked upon as somebody that doesn't have parenting skills, or somebody that's not bonded with the kids, and the kids are all right with them. And really, that's not really completely true. In most instances, children love. I had one of the first cases I remember was a gentleman at Little League when I was a teenager, laid to see me so I could play basketball as a teenager. And he had actually been alienated from his now teenage daughter. She was up in her teens too, maybe about 15, 16 years, and hadn't seen him in Little in about 10 years. But notwithstanding that, when they got together, she loved him. She was like overjoyed to see him and to reconnect with him. So I'm saying, I hope the one thing that we can impress upon the moms and or the other people that may in any way interfere, whether sports or whatever, from a dad reconnecting, irrespective of whatever he did, as long as he didn't do something too drastic, which usually is not the case. In fact, one of the interesting things, even in terms of the social mission that I'm on with that, is that oftentimes when a kid is abused, they're more likely than not, and I hope nobody gets mad at me for saying this, but they're more likely to be abused by somebody other than the biological father. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, you don't have situations where the dad is so dangerous or so bad that the kids shouldn't be around.
Wow, man! So that's an uphill battle. Man, that's amazing, the work that you're doing. I want to share the slide because people may want to know how to get in contact with you. Mm-hmm. They're gonna see this replay or watch it live, and they may be dealing with some challenges, but custody, maybe. And we're not here. I like what you said. You're not a judging person. Mm-hmm. This is judge free. You're a truth seeker. So no matter what your situation, you're involved, have a healthy bond, or maybe due to some circumstances, there was a period of separation. Maybe you're worked out of town or a different state or out of the country, mm-hmm. or maybe you did face challenges with the criminal justice system, and now you're out and you want to reconnect. Whatever your situation is, we want to encourage you to try to see what you can do to be involved in children's lives. So I'm going to share this slide here where people can get in contact. So that's kind of your contact information. What's the best way? Do people Should they call that number to or go online to book an appointment? What's the best?
Either way, that phone is answered every day, and that's my website. So that's
share your website with you. That says on your
Fathers. We also have we're in tune with social media.
Results. I can show them.
As friends like Charles make me, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and that's
so Fathers Justice on Instagram.
Yes, we have Instagram, but we have Facebook.
What's the Instagram handle?
Same as the name of the business on there. As you see on the website, fathersjusticelaw.com.
Okay, fathersjusticelaw.com, Instagram. So when they go to that website, I think let me share my screen. I can go to your. I believe I have your website up here. Okay. There we go. I'm going to pull up the website, and then I'm going to share my screen so I can see.
So you can see the link to Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, yeah. Let me do that. All right, so there's the website. Okay, so there's an appointment right there, right?
Mm-hmm. No walk-ins. I emphasize that.
No walk-ins. Everybody hear that? You got to call. There's no appointment. Right. So I'm going to click on book an appointment, and then okay. Well, I put my email on here so everybody knows my business. So you just fill that out. So you pull that, put your email here. Oh, okay. So I can do afternoon, morning, all that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just doing a little thing. You put your phone number, and then what happens after that?
We'll contact.
Oh, family urgency. You submit. All right. So, okay. So I just wanted to kind of do a little demo. Okay. All right. So let me stop sharing here. Okay. Pull that slide back up. Let's see. There we go. All right. So I want to make sure if you are in need of help with dealing with divorce, custody issues, contact attorney Jermaine Wyrick, 313-395-2181, or you can go to the website, fathersjusticelaw.com, and as you saw how I did a demo, you can book an appointment. Appointment only, okay? So don't just show up, hey, I want to see my kids. I want to see my kids. Help me out. Don't just pull up. You want to schedule an appointment. As we kind of wrap this up, what are some of the things that you're working on, you got upcoming, and you want our audience to know, because you do some other things. I don't know if you want to share. That's up to you. Any announcements, anything you got coming up?
Off the top of my head, one of the things that I really want to do, even in terms of educating dads and community and parents just overall, is I'm going to have monthly webinars and seminars. We kind of come out of the pandemic and people aren't afraid to gather in an office. That's one of the things that I would say, if you follow us on social media, I would encourage you to. And we're going to start having monthly seminars and webinars. And really delving into what fathers should do about parenting. But as I stated, my overall mission, even kind of considering my childhood and my upbringing, is about parenting and children. So I'm not in any way, because oftentimes, one of the more compelling things that I find when I go out and speak in a group of people, oftentimes the women have a more positive emotional reaction just by virtue of women being women than I do. I'll say what I do. I change that days of separation. It's happy bringing the memories on Father's Justice Law. And a lot of times the women say that's definitely needed, because oftentimes when the dads are treated like second-class citizens in courts and the children are used as pawns and they become strangers or visitors or whatever you name it, the grandmother's affected, the aunt is affected, and it really takes away from that African proverb that is so wise, that it takes a village to raise a child. And really that village should be both the paternal and the maternal side of the family.
That's interesting. as we wrap things up, you brought up something very important I wanted to ask you. How have you been received in your practice as it relates to the mothers, women, and trying to get, advocating for them? What's been your experience with what you do with that? How's been the reaction?
It's perfectly fine. By virtue of the fact, like I said, a lot of times the women are the support base or the foundation for the band. And by that, I mean, a lot of times I'll talk to the guy's mom before I talk to the guy, because the guy might be working at the plant and the grandma is like not seeing their grandchild. Or I'll talk to his sister, or I'll talk to his new lady, I'll talk to his, second wife or something of that nature. So, like I said, women typically embrace it quite well because they're disturbed when they see situations that they don't necessarily think that are fair.
Okay.
That have an adverse impact, most importantly on the child.
Wow. So, all right. So the women out there watching the replay and watching it live, and you have maybe you have a brother or sibling, uncle or someone, or maybe you're a new spouse or someone you're dating, and you see that they're in a challenging situation and they need help with having equitable parenting time and being involved in their children's lives. Reach out to this brother, Jermaine, Wyrick. He'll help you. What was that slogan you said? Make
changing sad days of separation into happy parenting memories, because oftentimes when you have the separation, that separation is not only from the mom, but it's also from the children. And we talk so extensively today about the importance of dads not being alienated because of the adverse lifelong, short-term and long-term life consequences.
Yes.
We don't want any of these children having to grow up and having to deal with so many problems as adults, whether it's poverty, whether it's homelessness, whether it's criminal activity, whether it's substance abuse, things of that nature, because they're still trying to recover from the trauma of not having a good and capable dad in their lives.
Wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our podcast episode 122. We want to thank our guests.
Thanks for inviting me, Charles.
Jermaine A. Wyrick, founder of Fathers Love Justice Law. Let me show the contact information one more time. There you go. So if you know anyone who's in need of services, custody issues, parenting time, reach out to fathersjusticelaw.com or schedule an appointment on 313-395-2181. All right. All right, so that concludes our podcast. Thank you for those who are watching us live and those who will watch the replay. And there'll be some information in the description for our platinum sponsors, as well as our guest today, and how you can reach out and contact. So we're hoping that those who are watching get involved in your children's lives. If you need the course to help you, reach out to someone to represent you, to help you advocate on your behalf so that you can make an impact in children's lives in a positive way. So thank you again for watching the podcast. If you find value in what we're doing, please like, follow, subscribe, share with your friends. This is a unique podcast where we empower people by celebrating the difference makers in Detroit, by creating a platform where they can share about the things they're doing, the positive contributions in the community. You learn about new businesses, entrepreneurship, and reaction to community news. If you find value in that, please like and subscribe and share with others. You too can be a part of the biggest growing empowerment movement in Detroit. So I'll see you next Monday with another great guest, and everyone have a good night.
Hey everyone, this is Charlie the Plug, your host of the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, powered by Empower You Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe so you too can be a part of the biggest empowerment network on YouTube and Facebook. We bring you weekly interviews of Detroit difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship, community involvement, also reaction to business news and community news. This does not happen without your support. Thank you.